Welcome. In this video, we'll take a closer look at server cards. We'll show the different types of cards one can add. We'll show how to add or remove a card. And finally, we'll take a closer look at the content of the cards. We begin by logging into the installation server. So you enter a username, a password, accept the terms and conditions, and then click on the login button. From here, we'll select an existing deployment, in this case OP-Dev KVM10. Now that we're on the deployment page, let's take a closer look at the cards section. The cards section is a section on the left representing all of the servers in our deployment. The most basic deployment consists of one database server, one deployment manager, one application server, and one reporting server. In addition to this setup, deployments can also include one or more application servers, one or more reporting servers, as well as one search and one workflow server. To add a server, simply select one of the following servers from the drop-down in the top left. Only servers that can be added to a deployment will appear in the drop-down. For example, we see an application server, a reporting server, and a workflow server. We do not see the deployment manager as an option because we already have one below, and you can only have one. Let's now take a look at how to add a workflow server. We select workflow server, click on the add icon. We'll then be prompted with a warning to confirm we'd like to add a new card. Go ahead and click on continue. Once that is done, we'll see that the workflow server has been added to the end of the list. We also see that it is highlighted in blue, meaning that it is currently the selected card. Now that we've added it here, if we go back to the drop-down, we'll see that it is no longer a selection because it is no longer a server that can be added. Application server and reporting server will always appear because you can have many of these. However, for all other servers, you can only have one of them. In order to remove a card, you can simply go ahead and click on the delete button on the top right. Once again, you'll be prompted, in this case to confirm you want to remove the server. Go ahead and click on continue. We'll see that it no longer appears in the cards section on the left. None of these changes, adding or removing cards, actually take effect until we click on the save button. Once save is clicked, the cards as well as the properties will be saved to the deployed properties file.
Now let's take a closer look at the contents of a card. So the top of each card consists of a name. Here it's OP-prod-DB. This is an admin provided name. So if I were to, for example, change it, you'll see that it updates as the user changes it here. So to the right of that, we just saw the delete button. And then below that, you'll see on some of the cards they have this agent off as well as a start and stop icon. This represents the agent status for this particular card. So all servers, with the exception of the database card, have an agent associated to it. This is what allows the web application installation server to communicate with the remote server that we're trying to install here. So when you see this this gray agent off status, that basically means that the agent isn't running. To start it, you can simply click on the start button. That'll go off and it'll send a request to the card in question to actually start the agent. Once that returns, once that action is complete, it'll come back and it'll update the status accordingly. So if it were started, you would see to the right of that, you see the stop button being enabled and so forth. So below that, we have the type of card that we're dealing with. So in this case, it's deployment manager, application, we have database, etc. So actually just going back to the agent, so once the action has been complete, you'll also see a message saying that the status of that action, in this case start agent, was successful. You can exit out and it's gone. And now we'll see the stop button is enabled as well as the icon for the agent status is now set to green because the agent is now running. So below the agent status, we just talked about the type. So we have database server, deployment manager, application server, reporting server, and global search server. If there's a workflow, you'd see that as well. And then below that, sometimes we'll see a progress bar. The progress bar will appear if an action is currently in progress. Things like install, configure, file backup, restore. Those are the different types of things we'll actually be able to see progress for that. In addition, you might actually also see if there's an error on a particular card. whether that be from trying to do a validate and it was unsuccessful. There might be some errors associated to that, and you might see that on the card. Or if a configure failed, you'll see that as well. So let's actually take a closer look at some of the different types of cards you may see. So we talked about the agent off. We talked about the agent on. You see the green icon there. Progress bars, which we were just discussing. You'll see a progress bar like so. So the progress bar, it's important to note that it's actually not time-based. It's based on the number of steps for a particular action. So, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really care about if action 1 takes 10 minutes and the next action takes 1 minute. Each of those steps is considered one step along in the progress. So when you see 27%, it's actually 27% of the actions of the breakdown for those particular steps for the action that have been completed. And to the right of that, you'll see a card with some errors. In this case, there's 3 errors. And if there are errors along with warnings, you'll see both of those appear on the card as well. So in this case, there's 10 errors, 10 warnings. And this particular operation also provided a log that you can download for this particular application server as well. And it's also important to note as well that when an action is in progress, everything on the card will actually be disabled. So users won't be able to operate or do any sort of action with that card. So this concludes our video. In this video, we have discussed the different types of cards that make up a deployment, how to add and remove cards, as well as we have taken a closer look at the contents of a card. We hope you found this video helpful, and we invite you to follow along with some of our other videos.